Okay, so winter is coming, and should you even fly your drone this winter, or should you pack it up ready for summer? Well, absolutely not. Make sure you're flying your drone in the winter because you can get some fantastic photos and videos, unique shots that you can't get any other time. I'm going to be going through right now my top tips of how to keep your drone safe and you make sure you don't freeze your ass off in the process when flying your drone. Let's get into number one. Now, flying your drone in fog, snow, rain, it can give this really unique perspective, but it also can cause a lot of damage to your drone as well. Now, none of the DJI drones are actually waterproof. That doesn't mean though that they can't withstand these conditions. So be really careful, but I've had my drone in so many situations where it has got wet, it has had lots of moisture on it, and it's been okay. So if you are caught out and it starts raining or it starts snowing, you can get these really nice photos and videos of these snowflakes coming down, then get them. But don't be staying in the air for longer periods of time in adverse weather. I'm not saying keep your drone in the air when it's absolutely pouring down. That's a really bad recipe for disaster. But certainly get these shots and get it back to you. Once it's got back to you, then make sure it's completely dried off. Make sure the propellers are all dry so no ice is then going to form. Now, the worst case scenario is going to get any moisture from on the top of the drone, inside of the drone. That's going to then mess up the internals, so you don't want that. Make sure it's completely dried off and then ready for its next flight ahead. But most of the time, if you're just going to be flying and it's in light rain or light snow, it's going to be absolutely fine. We're going to talk about batteries as well. This is really important and a key factor in winter flying. So batteries, super important. Make sure that your batteries are completely 100% charged about 24 hours before you go off and fly. If you have the case like this and you charge all your batteries a few days before, you'll probably find that they actually have started to discharge in this case. So fully charge them a day before. Make sure all your batteries are completely fully charged and make sure that there is no swelling on the batteries whatsoever. It's very important with batteries we're going to move on to next to make sure that there isn't any issues with your drone, and most of the time it's going to be relating to your batteries. So batteries, make sure completely fully charged and don't have one. Because of these operating temperatures, it's going to be reduced the battery life when flying the drone. One battery is not going to be good enough and you're going to miss so many shots. I would say 2 or 3 as a minimum. Now, battery life is going to be reduced in these cold weather conditions, so bear that in mind. On a good day, Mini 3 Pro is going to give you about half an hour battery life. Look towards the 20-minute mark on a cold weather condition. So think about where you're going to have to go off and fly before you take off. Have a plan. Is there something unique in that area you want to take photos of or videos, so you're not wasting crucial battery life once it's in the air? And altitude is also going to play a big factor on battery life. You see, depending on where you are, you might be already high up anyway on top of a hike or a mountain in cold conditions. The higher up you go, the colder it's going to get. So these propellers have got to spin even faster. On the Mini 3 Pro, these propellers are tiny, literally like half the size of the Mavic 3 propellers. So the faster they spin, the more battery life they're going to use. So this crucial battery life that maybe could be like 20 minutes in cold conditions has now going to be dropped even more. So if you can, don't be flying too high because that's just going to reduce your battery life too much. Now, when you get to this location, don't get your Mini 3 Pro and get to the snow and put it on the ground and then take off. That's just the worst thing you can do, because as these propellers spin and it takes off, it's going to blow all the snow and moisture into the bottom of the drone. So even before this is taken off properly, it's probably knackered. So don't do that. What I would advise is do a palm takeoff. So put it on your hand and take off. That's the easiest way of doing takeoff and landings. So practice them. That's my number one thing to do. Or if you don't want to do hand takeoffs, you could find something which is dry, like a bin or a wall or something, but it's going to be hard to find something which is actually dry. So you could take like a landing pad. That might be like a second choice, but most of the time, if you're like me, you will forget your landing pad. So get used to hand takeoff and landings. This video is sponsored by Epidemic Sound with a catalogue of 35,000 tracks and 90,000 sound effects. This is a great place to get royalty-free music for your social media channel. Sound design is a huge part of any editing, and being able to find good quality music and sound effects is key. This year I've teamed up with Epidemic Sound to bring you an exclusive Cyber Week discount on their music service. You can get a 30-day free trial and an extra 2 months with 75% off by clicking my link in the description. The discount is valid for the personal plan and the offer will be only available for 5 days from today, so make sure not to miss out on this offer and the diverse music catalogue of Epidemic Sound by clicking my link in the description below. Let's get back to the video. And where are you storing these batteries on way to that location? You see, you don't want your batteries to be super cold. You want them to be fairly warm before you go off and fly. We'll touch on that in a minute why. So when you actually go into this location, I would have this in maybe like a bag with like one of those hand warmers you can pick up. So it's actually keeping the batteries fairly warm, like lukewarm. Failing that, keep them in your pocket, or what a lot of people do is when they're actually at the location and they've got spare batteries, they'll actually put them under their arm when they're flying or in their pocket. So it's actually keeping some warmth to your batteries. Having cold batteries like this is going to be a massive issue. We're going to come onto that in a second. So don't be storing these like in the garage overnight or in the shed or something, and these are absolutely freezing. That's going to cause so many voltage issues, which we're going to come onto. So make sure, go into this location, or when you're at that location, think about where you're storing your extra batteries and have them somewhere warm. So when you get to that location, you take off from your hand. I won't go off and fly straight away. Just have your drone hovering in place for about 30 seconds. This is going to give you full GPS lock. It's going to give you that return to home lock, but it's also going to warm the drone and the batteries up as well. And this is crucial. You see, this drone, the Mini 3 Pro, can its operating temperature to -10. Now, it can withstand more than that at your risk, so bear that in mind. But say you're in -10 conditions and you're just hovering this drone in place. If there's going to be any battery or voltage warning messages on the screen or any issues to do with this drone whatsoever, you would rather you see them when it's like 2 meters off the ground and then you can land it straight away, rather than you take off and fly off really quickly and then see all these messages and your drone drops out the sky. So have it hovering in place and just look on the screen, look on the Fly app to make sure there's no error messages. If there is, you might just have it hovering in place for another 30 seconds, minute, and these error messages will go. So always have it hovering in place and check to make sure that there's no further messages or warning messages on the screen before you go off and fly further. Now the issue comes, we're going to touch on now, is to do with the voltages and the batteries. Now we don't have to know everything about this like you would have to on some like custom-made FPV drones. This makes it a lot more straightforward. But in cold conditions, when the batteries are cold, this can cause some confusion with the software, the drones, and the actual drone thinking that you've got less battery life than you actually have. So bear this in mind, this is the first thing. When you actually take off and you go off and fly, don't put it into sports mode straight away and go full hog on the right stick and fly off as fast as you can. You see, this is going to use so much power that the drone, when this battery is cold, is going to give some voltage issues. So the drone might think that you've actually got 1% of battery life left, and really you've got 100 because you're using all this power really fast in really cold conditions. What's going to happen then? The drone is literally just going to fall out the sky. So don't do that, whatever you do. So what I would do when I'm flying in really cold conditions, when I go off and fly, that first, say, 4 to 5 minutes, it's normally in normal mode or cine mode, and I'm just basically hovering around. I'm just flying slowly. I'm getting a few shots. I'm getting some orbits just to get the drone itself and the batteries warmed up. Now you can go into the settings and look at the actual temperature, the operating temperature, the temperature of your batteries. So I advise doing that. But first thing to do is don't put it into sports mode and go off and flying really fast. Wait until it's actually warmed up and then you can do that. So you want to make sure that you're wearing appropriate clothing when flying your drone. You're the most important part of all this, and your hands are the main factor in getting good photos and videos. If you're holding your controller absolutely freezing your ass off without any gloves on, your footage is going to show. It's going to be absolutely shit, isn't it? So make sure you're wearing decent gloves. I was wearing these last year. These are the DJI Tech gloves. I've dug them out ready for the winter ahead. I love these. I use these pretty much all the time, all throughout winter. These are really strong gloves, are really warm and waterproof as well. Really good. So I can hold my controller with these gloves and get really good shots while keeping my hands warm. But if I want to get fine movements as well, I can also pull these thumb and fingertips back and then get some more precise shots with my thumb and fingers straight on here. And then once I've done that, I can cover them back up, and these all clip in place. So these are great. Really advise you getting some really good gloves. If you're interested in these DJI Tech ones, I'll link in the description below. Now the Mini 3 Pro has obstacle avoidance sensors. This is great, but when it's snowing, you might have snowflakes coming down. It's not going to be very good for the drone. You see, these obstacle avoidance sensors detect objects and they are pretty sensitive. So I would make sure these are turned off so it's not swerving and avoiding any snowflakes. It's not going to look very good on film. Now if you've been flying your drone in really freezing conditions and you bring your drone into a warm environment like inside of your house, this can actually cause condensation as well. It's going to cause it on the actual sensor, on the outside of the drone, and worst case scenario, inside of the drone as well. That's something we don't want. We don't want any condensation inside of this drone, which is going to mess up the internals. So what I would suggest is, whatever bag or case you've had this in your car, bring that case with the drone still inside of it and put it inside of your house for about a couple of hours, just so the drone can actually get then used to more room temperature wise, and then you can then take it out after a couple of hours and it'll be fine. So don't be exposing this and having this next to the fireplace straight away after it's been in like -10 conditions. That is just a recipe for disaster. So I've just played back the last part of this video, and don't you love it when your microphone fails on you? So there was no audio whatsoever, so here's future self now filming this. So I hope you enjoyed that, some flying tips of how to fly your Mini 3 Pro or any of the DJI drones in the winter months. It's a really good time to get some unique captured shots, videos and photos when it's snowing, when it's icy. Just follow these tips and you'll do great. So let me know in the comments down below, what were some of your favourite tips? I hope you've learned something, and if you're new around here, a like and subscribe, it would be awesome. So I'll see you soon guys, take care, bye bye.